A tenant in New York is demanding that the state pass the new good cause eviction law so that she can never be evicted and her rent can never be raised. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the story of a tenant who wants the New York State eviction law called the Good Cause Eviction Law. She wants it to pass because she personally is facing problems with her tenancy inside this house now she's pushing for this law to pass, and it's not she's not looking at the overall picture. She's looking at her personal situation and not realizing, hey, these landlords, they have a right to do what they want to do with the property. And the article, it goes over her story, and I'm going to rip her story apart because, simply put, I hate when these articles, they go and they talk to the tenants, they never talk to a landlord, they never try to look at it from the other side of the story and realize that, hey, there's more going on here than what's being said. Now, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know in your area, okay? When they go out and, these newspaper articles and they talk to landlord or to tenants about these, stories, etc., do they ever talk to the landlords as well? Okay, this is a big problem. I think that more landlords, even though they try to twist our words, even though they try to make us look bad, we need to get out there. We need to talk to these people when they come, okay? This no comment stuff, it makes us look like, we're admitting guilt almost, okay? I would rather go out there and say what I need to say and then them try to chop it up than not say anything and then let them assume the worst, okay? So this article is coming from thequeenseagle.com, and it says, Queens resident faces eviction, calls for good cause to pass. And like I said, this article, it is leaning towards the tenant side of the story, but I'm going to rip it up, okay? There has to be a healthy amount of skepticism for stuff written in these articles because, simply put, otherwise, everybody's going to believe everything they say, and landlords are going to get thrown out the window with all these ridiculous rules and laws that they're trying to pass. So let's get into it, okay? Dawn White has lived in the same Rosedale home with her family for 2 decades. She and her husband have raised their 2 kids there and become part of the neighborhood, White said. But last year, her former landlord sold the 2-family house, putting the Whites' future in the home in jeopardy. White's new landlord has been attempting to evict both the Whites and the second family living in the home in order to convert the house into a 3-family building, according to White. It's definitely caught me by surprise, White said. I've been here for 20 years. I didn't know what the hell was going on. Under current state law, tenants in non-rent regulated buildings do not have a right to a new lease, and landlords can attempt to evict tenants for whatever reason they'd like. Okay, so let's go dive into those first few paragraphs here, okay? So we have a tenant, okay? She's lived in the same property for 20 years. This is a very, very long time. I mean, I don't think I have any tenants who lived in any of my units for that long, but it's understandable. A lot of people, they don't like to move, and if the previous landlord wanted to keep her in there for that long, then there's nothing wrong with that. But the property sold. So a new landlord comes in, and new people, when they buy properties, when I buy a property, I'll tell you what, okay? I'm planning out in my head how exactly I'm going to make that investment worth it. And it's not worth it to me to say, okay, well, the previous landlord had the rents, below market levels, and the place hadn't been updated in 20 plus years, and I'm just going to buy the property and just keep it going exactly the same way as it was before. No. What kind of person would even buy a property like that? I mean, remember, landlords are real estate investors, okay? And investing means that we look at something, we say, hey, how can I bring the value of this up? How can I make an investment of my money and then bring the value up so that I make more money? Okay, that it's obvious. And if you want a charity, then you need to go down and talk to these nonprofits. Okay, landlords are business owners and investors. We're not charities. Okay, so it makes absolute sense that the new landlord will want to come in there and make more money. And if that means that, hey, they want to evict you so that they can make improvements to the property, bring the value of the property up, bring the rents to the property up to the market level, then that's what has to happen. And I'm sorry, but you have no right, zero right, to stay in this property for the rest of your life, even if you've been there for 20 years. And you knew deep down the second you moved in there, hey, I don't own this property and this could happen to me one day. Well, at least you should have known. But up in New York State, because tenants have been given so many rights, they feel entitled to these properties. And that's not the way that things should be done. Now, it also said here that under the current law, tenants in non-rent regulated buildings don't have a right to a new lease. And that's good. Okay, because that's the only way that these small mom and pop landlords are able to get these tenants out. Okay. However, under a new bill in the state legislature, that could change. The Good Cause Eviction Bill, introduced in the state Senate by Senator Julia Salazar and co-sponsored by Queens Senators Toby Ann Stavisky, Michael Gianaris, John Liu, Jessica Ramos, and James Sanders, would make it so landlords could only evict tenants with a good cause. Those causes include a tenant failing to pay rent, a violation of a substantial obligation of the tenancy, causing a nuisance, or using the home for illegal purposes. Under the bill, a property owner could also evict if the owner or relatives want to move into the property. Yeah, well, there's a big problem. I've covered this good cause eviction law in a couple of other videos before, and I'm 100% opposed to it, okay? And I can see these sort of things spreading throughout the country, especially with all the eviction protections from the eviction moratorium having ended. Now, the tenant right advocates are looking for a way to basically ban evictions permanently across the country, and this is their solution. Not only that, but they've written into it provisions that prevent landlords from raising rents above a certain percentage every year, right? So basically it has rent control built into it. So we got rent control and an eviction moratorium built into a state law. And this is why I'm so opposed to it. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. So they only have a few reasons why you could evict under this, right? And it says failing to pay rent, a violation of a substantial obligation of the tenancy, causing a nuisance, or using the home for illegal purposes. Now, look at what's missing from that, okay? A landlord wouldn't be able to evict a tenant because they want to make substantial improvements to the property, okay? So imagine you have a property and it's in bad shape and you're like, hey, I want to fix this property up so that it's nicer, so it's not so much of a blight. Well, you can't remove the tenants from it. They have a right to stay there indefinitely and perhaps forever. They could stay there past the your death. But you could never fix this property up. So this will lead to the housing stock becoming deteriorated. And this is one of the issues that they have with the rent controlled buildings right now. Why is the rent controlled property in such bad shape? Because we have people in there who've been there for 20, 30, 40 plus years, and the property owners have been unable to go into the units, fix them up, and then bring them up to modern standards. That means that the housing stock is old and crappy. It's deteriorated and there's nothing that can be done about it, and even when the tenant does move out, what is the incentive for the landlord to then fix the property up if they can't bring the rates up to market level? Okay, if the rent can't be risen to market level, then there's no incentive for the landlord to make those improvements. So yeah, that's what this is going to cause the same issue. And right now, that's only an issue for rent regulated buildings. But with the passing of the good cause eviction law, this will be brought to every small mom and pop landlord who never had to deal with rent control before in the state of New York. And that is going to be a nightmare. Okay, let's keep going.
My apologies. I couldn't.
Landlord groups, landlord groups, including the Real Estate Board of New York, have spoken out against the bill. The proposal to enact the Good Cause Eviction Bill would lead to the deterioration of the housing stock and severely discourage the creation of multifamily housing, exacerbating the affordability crisis, REBNY said in testimony to the state Senate in February 2020. However, the bill has come to prominence following the expiration of the state's eviction moratorium and has the support of a number of lawmakers and tenant advocacy groups, including the Legal Aid Society, which is representing White in her legal battle against her landlord. So, yeah, of course, they got these tenant advocate groups fighting this new landlord. And they never said that, hey, this new landlord is some huge multinational corporation. Remember, this lady lives in a 2-family home. Okay, and that's absolutely ridiculous. That this person probably is a small landlord and has to still deal with all these issues. So let me continue, and they're kind of going more into the tenant story at this part, and it really says that. I think the tenant's in the wrong here, right? And that the new landlord should have the right to do what they want to do with the property. But let's keep going. A violent act. White and her husband moved into the Rosedale building 20 years ago. Their 18 and 19-year-old children have spent their entire lives there. Though White says she was told by the building's previous owner that they would never sell, he died several years ago, and his children sold the building at the start of 2021. They didn't even give me proper notice, White said. White, who lost her job at the start of the pandemic and only recently again became employed, alleges in court filings that the new landlord, Adrian Briscoe, engaged in multiple forms of harassment in an effort to get the Whites to leave. Briscoe could not be reached for comment. Yeah, so like I said, this landlord, obviously couldn't be reached for comment. I'm not saying that they need to do a full interview, but, a nice written statement, laying out the true facts of the case would have been nice, with maybe help from an attorney, just to get your story out there, because you look like crap when you're sitting here and, they got their hard luck story in this newspaper and you've got nothing defending yourself. And, the fact that she's up here, they didn't give me notice that they were selling the property. Landlord don't have to give you notice of crap, okay? If they want to sell the property, they have the right, and you can't do anything about it. You don't own the place. You're just the tenant. What the, the nerve of this lady. It's absolutely insane to me that they think they own the place. Okay, and it's bothersome. So the article goes into some little BS that she thinks that justifies the new landlord harassing her. The landlord cut down a tree, was doing maintenance, essentially doing yard maintenance to the property, and she didn't like it. I was like, oh no, the landlord is doing maintenance and trying to improve the property. Oh, it's awful. And then the landlord wants to, convert it from a 2-unit into a 3-unit, so they have to evict the current tenants who are in there in order to do that. Nothing wrong with that, okay? Making improvements to the property, it's actually going to increase the amount of housing stock in the neighborhood by turning 2 units into 3. But no, that's bad. It's bad that the landlord and real estate investors want to invest money into the neighborhood, make the area nicer, and keep the housing stock up to date. That's the nerve of these tenants. They think they know better than the people who bought the property. Keep in mind, these people bought the property to make money, and that's why I have to stand here and I have to defend the landlord and I have to call BS on this lady. I say the good cause eviction law is going to be a nightmare for small mom and pop landlords, and you can see it just by the way this tenant is acting. Okay.